Before I get into showing you how we store carrots for 6 months without a root cellar, just in our regular refrigerator, I have a little bit of a proof of life video for you. These are actually the exact carrots from this video, just 3 months later. These have been in the fridge for 3 months. They're starting to grow some root hairs, which is not a problem. They're also threatening to sprout from their tops a little bit, which is also not an issue and is to be expected at this point. They're as sweet and juicy and crispy as ever. They're absolutely delicious, and they've even got a few more months of storage life in them as well. Here's how we do it. We're in Zone 4, Wisconsin, so we plant carrot seeds at the beginning of summer, let them grow all season long, and then harvest them usually sometime in October. And I should clarify, we grow enough carrots to eat them all season long. We just also grow enough to have a big harvest in fall that we intend to store for the winter. For storing carrots long-term, quality does matter, so I like to grow them in a raised bed. You don't have to, but I think it helps. I think they grow bigger, which is better for storage, and they grow straighter. They're less likely to be forked because the soil is a lot fluffier and lighter. And I also think that they tend to be eaten less by bugs and critters and things. For long-term storage, variety also matters. They need to be a variety that is a known good storing variety or a long keeper, so look for those words on the seed packet when you're buying seeds. A couple tried and true favorites of mine are Danvers 126 half long. I think that's probably my favorite. Another one I've had great success storing long-term is called Dolciva. And if you're looking for a purple variety, I've had great results with Cosmic Purple. It doesn't say on the packet that it's a long storer, but I've grown it and stored it for years with really good results. For our storage carrots, we usually pick a day towards the end of October, a nice cool and dry day, and harvest them all, get them processed, and get them into the fridge. The first and very important step for storing carrots long term is to get the greens off as soon as possible. I cannot tell you the number of times people ask me what they're doing wrong and why their carrots won't store and why they become limp and floppy, and it's because the greens seem to suck out moisture and energy from the root if you leave them on. So right after we get these out of the ground, I like to cut the tops off with a scissors. It needs to be a pretty sharp, pretty sturdy, good scissors, and you can see here I line it up. I'm trying to cut all of it off, but I'm not cutting into the shoulders of the carrot. There's kind of a Goldilocks spot here. You don't want to leave too much and you don't want to leave too little. And of course, if you want to use the greens for something like pesto or a dehydrated herb spice, you are welcome to do that as well. Sometimes I get some real funky ones. This carrot, for whatever reason, started wildly growing greens, and it's not a good candidate for long-term storage. In general, anything odd or weird gets put in the eat sooner than later bin. Now, in general, and for long-term storage, I like to grow as big of carrots as possible. It's not a requirement for long-term storage, but I think it does help. It does seem to me that the bigger they are, the better they store. So we just let them grow all season long. I don't find that they get tough or woody or anything like that, but maybe in your growing zone, in your climate, or in your soil, you might have a different experience. It's also worth mentioning for long-term storage, we harvest our carrots while the tops are still green and before they've died back. The one tricky thing about growing big carrots is that they also have really big, thick tops that are more difficult and take a little bit more finesse to cut through. And for these bigger ones, I almost like to leave just a little bit more greens than I would for a smaller carrot, because it seems to me that it's almost like the carrot flesh extends up and into the greens a little bit, so you don't want to cut it too far down. Of course, it's still the Goldilocks game where you don't want to leave it too long, but I like just a little bit more of a nubbin left on these big ones. Next, we give them a gentle rinse, and this is something that I have trialed and played around with in my storage carrots. You know, do I rinse them? Do I not rinse them? Does it matter? And I have found that it kind of doesn't matter. Just as long as they're not totally caked with dirt. You wouldn't want dirt cakes all over them, but I like to rinse them. I don't want to bring all of this dirt into my kitchen, and I especially don't want to wash all of this extra dirt down my kitchen sink drain when I am scrubbing these up in the house in the middle of January, getting them ready to eat. What you definitely don't want to do is scrub these. Do not scrub them before they go into storage. You can do that once you take them out to use them. And in general, we're trying to be very gentle with these carrots. I wouldn't want to nick them or bruise them. I'm trying to keep them in as good a condition as possible. Now we bring the carrots into the house and spread them out onto the table that we have lined with towels to let them dry a little bit. And we're just gonna let them air dry from probably like 30 to 60 minutes. I don't want it to be too long because I don't want them to warm up too much. They're still nice and cool from being in the ground, but I don't want them to be glistening wet. So I don't know the science here or if this is just the magical detail, but the type of bag that you use to store carrots seems to matter, and these are the best. They're like bread bags, really thin gallon storage bags that come with twist ties, and they work really well. I'll link these in the video description below. I just think it might be that they're the perfect combination of keeping the moisture in, because you do have to keep carrots moist, but also letting them breathe. And so what I'm doing now is sorting them. I want the carrots that are going into long-term storage to be the most perfect, pristine carrots I have. Like this one right here, it has some weird bump. I have no idea what that is, but I know that I don't want to store that, so that's going into the eat sooner than later bin. Only the ones that have no nicks, no cuts, no little animal teeth marks or anything like that go into the long-term storage. I'm also leaving on, for lack of a better term, their little rat tails. Don't snap the long tips off the carrots. We want to leave those intact too. Carrots with splits, whether they're big splits or smaller splits, go into the eat immediately category. These will not store good long term. The other thing I'm doing while I'm sorting these is grouping them by size. And I'm not being too fussy about it, but in general, I like to make bags of really big carrots, bags of medium, and bags of smaller, and then we eat the smallest ones first, the medium ones second, and save the biggest for last. Here's another example of one that I'm not going to store long term. A carrot with a lot of appendages will go in the eat sooner than later bag. When a bag is full, I twist it shut and secure it with a twist tie, and these are ready to go in the fridge. They don't need any other special treatment. And you can see here that they're a little bit dirty yet. They're not bone dry, but they're not glistening wet either. They're just the perfect amount of moisture heading into the fridge. In general, you want to get these from ground to fridge as soon as you can and keep them as cool as possible during the process. And as with anything you're storing long term, it's best to check on them from time to time so you can intervene if needed if one starts to go downhill. I've tried storing carrots in a lot of different ways over the years, including in our cellar in damp sand, and I've tried sphagnum moss and sawdust, and storing them in the fridge is by far the best results I've had. We keep an extra fridge in our basement where we store all of our fruits and vegetables for the winter, things like apples, sauerkraut, and all of our carrots. And that's it. That is how we store carrots for 6 months. Let me know if you have any questions, and if you found this video helpful, I would love it if you could give it a thumbs up. And make sure to subscribe to my channel so that you are the first to know whenever a new video is posted.